Welcome to Niners Nightly.
You guys are going to hear it. The latest from the locker room, the latest from the podium, the latest scuttle from the players.
On your proud home of 49ers football. Touchdown! KNBR, the sports leader. Your faithful fix with your host, Larry Krueger, begins.
We'll take phone calls. We'll talk Niners for a full hour. Fired up. Really excited.
Now.
And we are off and running from Santa Clara. Larry Krueger with you on The Sports Leader on a beautiful Saturday. Man, what a day. College football going on. Great weather around the Bay Area. The Niners going on Monday night. The NFL kicked off Thursday night. We got another NFL game last night. We get more NFL games tomorrow. We got a full slate of college ball today. It's hard to beat it. It's this time of the year, September football, and welcome to the first edition. This is not Niners Nightly, which is 6 to 7, Monday through Friday, but it is our 49er Forecast Hour, which we are going to bring to you every Saturday during football season for an hour. We're going to talk 49er football, and today is no different. We're gonna talk about the matchup on Monday night, and there's a bunch of angles on this matchup that I think are really, really interesting that we're going to get to. But just planning the hour, Raph on the controls back at the mothership. Thanks to Raph, friend of mine for a long, long time through Marty, and it's great to be working with Raph again here on the Leader. And next segment, Jordan Elliott is going to join us, and I think Jordan Elliott. And if you say Jordan Elliott, you say, "Oh, great, Crew got the Niners defensive tackle." Not that Jordan Elliott. We got a different Jordan Elliott, a better Jordan Elliott. No, I'm just joking. But this is Jordan Elliott, who is the digital producer for NBC Sports Bay Area. Sometimes, you work in a market long enough, and there's all kinds of good media people, and we've talked to so many of them already this week on the show. And we will throughout Niners season bring you all the Niner beat writers and content creators, and like we had the voice of the Jets on last night. We've had beat writers, or 2 nights ago. Last night we had Jody Mack, who's maybe the preeminent Jets fan from CBS Sports Radio, WIP fame, WFAN. So we had him on, and we're going to do that throughout the week and bring lots of, behind enemy lines. We'll go behind enemy lines and bring you some of the key figures for the teams that are playing the Niners each and every week. So we'll do that a lot on Niners Nightly. And then on this Saturday show, we're just going to look ahead to, tomorrow's game, in this case, Monday night's game here at Levi's between the Niners and the Jets, and just kind of, definitely take some phone calls if you want to get in and give us your thoughts on what you expect to see Monday night from the 49ers. Feel free, bang out the number 808 KNBR. You can always hit me up on X as well. I'm at Sports Larry K, and you can follow me there. And of course, I just did my YouTube show on my YouTube channel, The Krug Show. Did an hour this morning from roughly 8:30 to 9:30 with my good friend the Coach, who's a content creator out of Maryland, who's a big time Niner backer and supporter and content creator. And I visit with him on Saturdays on the YouTube channel. But we're going to get into this hour. Jordan Elliott's going to join us next segment. We'll get his thoughts. He's up in the mountains enjoying some of the weekend, and but I think the connection will be good. We'll connect with him. We'll talk a little bit about Niners Jets and get his thoughts on what we may see Monday night. And then we're going to get into a little bit on some picks. I've got a couple picks, some games that I like around the NFL. We'll do a little bit of a pick segment before we get out of here. And then in addition to that, since this is the first show, I thought, you know what? Let's do an awards thing. Who's the coach of the year? Who do we think is going to win the comeback player of the year? Who's going to win the defensive rookie of the year? Who's going to win the offensive rookie of the year? The player of the year, the defensive player of the year, offensively, defensively, the MVP, the assistant coach of the year, the executive of the year. Who's going to win? And then we'll get in some predictions on division winners. And I've got the Niners beating the Texans in the Super Bowl for their sixth, that elusive sixth Lombardi trophy that has just been so hard seemingly for the 49ers to get. So that's what we're going to do in this hour. And then coming up at 11, we will hand the reins over to Fantasize This. The Fantasize This podcast with Marcus Boucher and Adam Copeland. And they'll talk fantasy football from 11 to noon, I believe. And then I'm off to practice. That's why I'm down here in Santa Clara. We were here late last night talking to Jody Mack, doing Niners Nightly. Got home, did the quick sleep, and then turned around and got in the car this morning and got down here to stream this morning here at Levi's, and then to do this hour on the radio before practice. So then we'll talk to Shanahan after practice. We'll go into the locker room. And, of course, we'll put all that stuff out on my YouTube channel, The Krug Show, as well as sharing all that stuff through KNBR socials. So should be a big day here in Santa Clara. And, obviously, we're all gearing up for the Monday night showdown, the Niners and the New York Jets. And, I got a lot of thoughts on this one. I'm not really sure what to expect, because the 49ers first team offense is awesome. They score 30 a game. Purdy's an MVP candidate, and now they've got everybody healthy, except for Ricky, who's obviously sitting out for the month. But they've only practiced together for like 2 days. And I just don't know that the Niners can just kind of snap their fingers and practice for like 2 or 3 days and just roll out there against one of the best defenses in the NFL and just not be any worse for wear. I mean, that to me is going to be really interesting. The 49er offense against this Jets defense. And, first of all, it all starts with Quinnen Williams inside, right? He is a monster. The man they call Q. And I asked Chris Forster, I said, Chris, what the Niner O-line coach, what makes Quinnen the monster that he is? And he was laughing. He's like, well, first of all, they list him at 303 pounds. I don't think he's been 303 pounds in a while. In other words, this guy's like 320, 330. But he's unbelievably quick. And he's a first team NFL All-Pro. So this is going to be a major, major challenge for my good friend Aaron Banks at left guard. Banks he draws Quinnen this week, and that is going to be, to say that's a challenge, it might be the understatement of the year, because Quinnen Williams is a monster. And I think Forster said it best yesterday. It's like, if somehow you get left, he beats you out of your stance, there's no time to recover. There's just no way to recover. He's that quick. He's that elusive. He's that, he's big and strong and fast. And he's just, it's funny, when the Niners took Bosa, they were contemplating Quinnen Williams or Bosa. And at the time I was thinking, go for Quinnen. He's the monster inside. He was incredible at Alabama. And they went for Bosa. And, it's funny, they, right away it was like, oh, well, man, they really dodged a bullet. They're lucky that, Arizona went with Kyler, and they're lucky that, they took Bosa instead of Quinnen. Well, you know what? Quinnen didn't hit the ground running in the NFL like Nick. But since that point, he's been absolutely as dominant and an interior rusher as Bosa is an outside rusher. And big number 95 is a problem. Now, Hassan Reddick is going to report, according to all the reports coming out of New York. He is going to report. He's not going to play in this game. So that's good news. But this is one of the NFL's better lines. The interesting thing to me is, what does the Niner offense look like in this game? One, because can Ayuk play the full game? Can Trent play the full game? Trent looked amazing at practice. I'll say that. I could not believe how good he looked late in the week. You would swear he didn't miss time. That's how good he looked. Chris Forster said maybe he'll sub in Jalen Moore, but he's like, I'm going to have Trent Williams while we're playing on offense, riding a bike on the sideline. He goes, it's hard for me to envision how that's going to work. So there's a very good chance I think Trent goes the entire time. Now, O-linemen, the Niners did last year, but most of the time you don't shuffle O-linemen. The guys you go with are the guys you go with. The starters typically play every snap unless they're hurt. So, I mean, it could be a 70 snap day or evening for Big Trent. Can he stand up to that? Can he play 70 snaps? I don't know. He looked good. He looked good enough in practice where I think it's possible, but you never know. You practice for a few days at age 36 and suddenly you're not feeling that great. So to me, the Niner offense is going to be really interesting because the Jets last year were a really good offense. If you look at their numbers, they were a top 5 across the board in almost everything, but they were 25th against the run. But they added Javon Kinlaw inside, and Kinlaw's put on 30 pounds. So now you got Kinlaw at about 345 inside next to Quinnen. You got Clemens and Jermaine Johnson and Will McDonald off the edges. Tack McKinley, who went to Kennedy High School in Richmond here in the Bay. He had 2.5 sacks in a preseason game. That front, I mean, it's a very front-driven defense, but it's not only a front because they got Sauce on the back end. Sauce Gardner is maybe the best corner in the game. I think the most underrated corner in the game is the guy opposite Sauce Gardner, the ex-Niner, DJ Reed. So I asked Purdy about it this week, and he's like, man, these corners are good. There's no question. So it's going to be a huge challenge. The perimeter matchup between Debo, Ayuk, and JJ against DJ Reed, Sauce Gardner, and Tony Adams is probably where this game is going to be won or lost. So, and then, those are the questions for the Niners on the offensive side of the ball. There's a whole slew of questions on the defensive side of the ball for the 49ers as well, because you got Rodgers, you got Breece Hall, you got Garrett Wilson, and you have a remade Jets offensive line with 3 new starters up front. So we're going to get more into the matchup coming up right now with Jordan Elliott. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll visit with Jordan Elliott, the digital producer for NBC Sports Bay Area, and I believe one of the smartest football media people in this entire market. He's a young kid, but he's really, really talented. He's going to stop by. We'll talk to him next, get his thoughts on the Monday Nighter, and then we'll get into what I saw last night in the game, and then some picks for the week and some awards for the year as we round out the hour. The first hour, 49ers forecast. We hope you enjoy it. And if you want to chime in, feel free. Bang out the number. Bang the number. 808 KNBR. But up next, Jordan Elliott from NBC Sports Bay Area joins us on The Sports Leader.
we've done so much, I feel like, as a team, whether it was guys leaving, guys joining our team, and growing together with the squad that we have this year, and that's where our mindset is at, man. It's about 2024. We played that game in February, and now it's already a new season. So for us, it's been like that since we got back for OTAs and camp. Just in terms of flipping the page and getting after it for this year, man. So it's a long season, it's a marathon, but we know what it takes. And Monday night for us, it's the start of a whole new journey. So.
Welcome back to 49er Forecast. Larry Krueger with you today on The Sports Leader down here in our studio at Levi's before I head out to 49er practice. Niners practice at 11. And, of course, at 11 o'clock, that's where we're walking you up to. You can hear Fantasize This, the Fantasize This podcast with Copes and Marcus talking fantasy football coming up top of the hour. But joining us on the UMA guest line, and, of course, that was Brock Purdy coming back. Purdy this year, Purdy is 14-1 right now to win the MVP. Christian McCaffrey 50-1. With us on the UMA guest line to break it all down and talk a little 49ers is Jordan Elliott. I think one of the better football guys you're going to catch in the media here in Northern California. He's a digital producer for NBC Sports Bay Area. And he's been on the Krug Show many, many times, and he's with us on KNBR to talk Niners and Jets. Jordan, thanks for a few minutes. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic, Larry. Thank you for having me.
Well, I pay you that compliment. I really do love your football breakdowns and some of the content that you've put out over the last couple of years. I know you do a role with NBC Sports Bay Area where you're working on the Warriors and the Giants and the Niners. But man, how much do you enjoy doing some of the football breakdowns and going out to the combine and really rolling up your sleeves and on the personnel side of things?
Oh, I love it. I love all sports, and I'm blessed to be in a role where I'm able to cover all of our local teams here. I think there's something different about football when football season rolls around. You can kind of feel it in the air. And I think we've been very lucky these last few years to see a team that's, among the best, if not the best roster in the NFL right now. And they're still within striking distance of getting that Lombardi that's, eluded the franchise for going on 30 years now. So I'm really excited for the season. I think the Niners are in a great spot, and I'm looking forward to breaking it down with you.
Yeah, what do you expect to see Monday night? The Jets roll in. They had a great defense a year ago. Hassan Reddick, it sounds like, is going to report, but he's not going to play Monday night. How do you see Niners offense that's really only been together for a couple practices this summer going up against a pretty good Jets defense that's good on all three levels?
Yeah, I think you nailed it. They have playmakers all over. Obviously, everybody focuses on Sauce Gardner because I think he can make a claim as the number one corner in the league right now, a perennial All-Pro since he's entered the league, just fantastic player. Obviously, former 49er DJ Reed's in that secondary as well. But that front four is really, really talented, and I think something that gets overlooked. Quinnen Williams is the guy that's going to be the household name, but they added Javon Kinlaw. Michael Clemens took a huge leap forward last year. Jermaine Johnson, a former first-round pick from a couple years ago out of Florida State, is another really talented edge rusher. Then McDonald there as well. So I think we're going to see a really tough challenge right away for a 49ers offensive line that hasn't had an entire camp together. And I think that will be more of a test rather than the rhythm between Purdy and the skill position players. I think the scheme's going to alleviate some of the pressure there, and they'll get some open looks and allow them to rhythm. But those guys in the trenches are just getting thrown out there, and I don't think they're going to have the benefit of kind of easing back into things. So I'll be really interested to see who wins that battle up front on those first couple drives.
I'm eager to see if the Niners offensively can handle the Jets' pressure. I mean, Jermaine Johnson, Will McDonald, I think it's going to be an awful big test for McKivitz and Trent. Quinnen Williams and Javon are huge-bodied guys inside. I think Brandel's going to have a hard time anchoring against Kinlaw. What do you think, though, as far as Robert Saleh? Do you anticipate that he's going to try to blitz Brock Purdy? Brock Purdy, New York blitzed the fewest times in the NFL last year. I mean, they blitzed 98 times on the year, but when they did blitz, they got home. Shanahan's teams have struggled with, Baltimore and Kansas City last year with some of the sim pressures. What do you think we're going to see up front from the Jets D line?
It seemed like when Saleh was here, he sparingly did blitz, and when he did, it was very tactful and, something that was probably game planned in rather than a feel thing during the game. I think that changed a bit when D'Amico Ryans was the defensive coordinator. I think he was a little bit more willing to kind of feel things out as the game went on. So I'm sure they have a couple pressures that they've baked into their game plan, depending on how the game goes. I don't know that that's the best avenue of success, though. I know Kansas City and Baltimore had some success with that, but I also think that the skill level of those defenses played a much bigger role rather than the scheme itself in those situations. Not that the Jets defense is very balanced as well, but we've also seen the flip side of it. That Thursday night game against the Jets, Wink Martindale is known for his affinity for blitzing. And they blitzed, it felt like, the entire game, and Purdy lit him up. And I think that he's a guy where he doesn't get fazed by that pressure, and he's a guy that is able to stay calm, throw hot, know where his check down is. And when you have the skill position players the 49ers do, you aren't afraid of checking down to a Kittle in the flat or throwing to McCaffrey, swinging it out wide in the backfield in those situations. So if they do go that route, I actually think it would be much more detrimental than just playing that more additional cover 3 shell, rushing 4, dropping 7 that Saleh did when he was here, because I think the Jets have the pieces on defense to really make a team have to drive the full length of the field that way methodically. And that's a much difficult path to scoring rather than just piling up a bunch of pressures and hoping that they get home.
Why do you think Shanahan has not used J.P. Mason more to this point? I know they had Mitchell, and obviously McCaffrey's a MVP, and that might be the answer right there. But, man, J.P. Mason is a load. He's 240 pounds. The guy runs incredibly well. Here comes the Jets. They allowed 4.1 yards per carry last year, which is not a great number. They missed 117 tackles last year, which is a lot. I think that was top 10 in the league. I expect the Niners to run the ball a lot. Is there a reason you think? Is Mason not doing something that Shanahan needs to see, or is it just, wait your turn, Bobby T's the gatekeeper, and unless Bobby T loves you, you don't get on the field?
I think it's honestly as simple as just like what you said. They had guys in the front that are really hard to supplant. McCaffrey, it speaks for itself. He's the best running back in football right now. He's one of the most dynamic talents we've seen at the position, given what he's able to do as a receiver, the pressure he puts on defenses. And then when you look at Mitchell, I think the thing that gets lost in the fold with Mitchell is how dependable he is. He has never fumbled in a game during his NFL career. And I think that the ball security is so valuable to Shanahan. He's also been a very productive runner as well. He's been very efficient. But I think that trust, knowing that the guy is not going to cough up the football, is something for Shanahan that goes an extremely long way. And, we saw Mason work into the mix a little bit towards the end of games, closing out games, especially when teams knew they were going to run the ball. I think they relied on having him be that more big physical back to really kind of put the exclamation mark on some wins. But everything we saw in camp, I was really impressed. I'm not sure about you. And I know McCaffrey had mentioned early on in camp that they noticed right away that Mason, always had the talent, but he was starting to really put it together where every single day the consistency was building. And I think that's something that just comes with time and with reps. So now going into this season, I think he's at a level where he's extremely confident, and he's had those reps where he's been the guy throughout camp when McCaffrey had that injury where he missed the majority of it. And I think that's going to bode very well for him going forward, where it looks like he's primed for this not only number 2 role, but kind of a feature role where you can spell McCaffrey a little bit after that extremely heavy workload he had last season. Because if you're planning on in deep January, you need to have these guys stay fresh. And I think that Mason gives them the opportunity where it's not going to be a 50-50 timeshare, but I wouldn't be surprised to see kind of like a 70-30 split when we're looking at rushing attempts at the end of the season.
Here's the big question, I think, for Shanahan. One of the big questions coming into this game. What do you do with George Kittle? Now, you look at Jermaine Johnson and Will McDonald and the struggles of Colton McKivitz and 2 practices from Trent Williams. And my first vote would be like, leave him in the block, right? Let him block. But then you look at the Jets and you look into some of those numbers from a year ago. They really struggled last year to defend the tight end. David Njoku from Cleveland late last year lit him up for 6 catches for 134 yards. So this is, to me, one of the key questions going into this game. How much do you need Kittle to block and help out McKivitz and Trent, as opposed to, do you want to get him out in the pattern and see if you can make the Jets cover the tight end? They struggle with the tight end.
Yeah, I'd be much more inclined letting Kittle get out there and run routes at a higher rate, and then you live with the results. I think the offensive line is going to be tested, but I think that they're more than capable of holding their own. And I think that there's some way to work in the quick game where they're not going to be back there blocking for 4 or 5 seconds consistently. And again, I don't think it's as easy as, scheming up routes and getting the skill position players in rhythm, but I do think there is a way to get the offensive line into rhythm, running the ball early, establishing the run so that you can then pivot to the play action, working in the quick game so that you're able to win some reps and get comfortable and throw off the timing of those very talented edge rushers and interior defensive linemen for the Jets. So I would be inclined to get Kittle out there, like you said, and really make that second level of the defense show that they're able to run with him, because I think that one thing that's really unfortunate is when you have as many talented skill position players as the 49ers do, I think that sometimes they overshadow one another because we get so hyper fixated on how talented one or two of them are. And I think Kittle is coming off one of the best seasons he's had as a pro, and it feels like it's kind of flown under the radar just because they have so many other talented players at their disposal. So I would get him out there running routes and see if the Jets are going to be able to stop him.
To me, one of the big questions in this game is, can the Niners stop Breece Hall, and can the Niners stop the screen pass in the short game? Every time I've watched the last year or two against the screen, even when they make the play, it looks like, well, if that guy didn't make the play, that could have gone for 35 yards. Or, hey, they made the play on this play, but man, if that guy doesn't trip him up, this guy could have gotten 30, 40, there's big plays out there. There's too much space, it seems like, on the field on these screen passes. It seemed like an area where the Niners really were good a few years ago under D'Amico, under Saleh. Not as much under Wilkes. I'm really eager to see what they look like against the screens under Sorensen, because I think they're going to get a bevy of them.
Yeah, absolutely. And, from everything we've heard, it seems like the transition with Sorensen as the defensive coordinator and then Brandon Staley also being there to offer suggestions, kind of incorporate a little bit of his philosophy coming from the Vic Fangio tree into the scheme that they're implementing this season. It sounds like the players are really confident that the adjustments that they've made throughout the course of the offseason and some of the things they took away from the playoff games, even the playoff games that they won last season, some of the things they took away from where they could have gotten better, it seems like they're really confident that they've made the necessary adjustments to adequately fix those and address those. So I'm really interested to see that as well, because I think if you go back and you watch the Green Bay game, you watch the Detroit game, there were definitely some moments there where it was uncharacteristic of the defense that we've grown accustomed to, where they've been this perennial top 3, top 5 unit for going on 5 seasons. And I think that they're going to look much closer to that week 1, where we're like, okay, this Niners defense still is the class of the league and still a team that needs to be feared and respected by opposing offenses.
Hey, Jordan Elliott with us from NBC Sports Bay Area, their digital producer on the UMA guest line, as we talk a little bit Niners and Jets on 49er Forecast. A couple last ones before we let you go. One of the interesting things I saw on Inside the NFL this week is they said that the league average throughout the preseason was to only play the starters 10% of the snaps. There were several teams in the league that played their starters between 5 and 6% of the snaps. They say the Atlanta Falcons only played their starters 3% of the snaps. You think this is a trend that we're going to see more of? Is this teams just saying, you know what, the players, is this about product of the players making more money and teams more concerned about the ability to replace players that they lose? It seems like teams were very cautious with their starters this summer.
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting discussion to have, because I do think there still is extreme value in the preseason, because I think it really is critical to figure out those roster cuts on the back end, guys on the bubble, like there's a considerable portion of an NFL roster that's going to get sorted out based on the performance of preseason games, based on the film you get in preseason games. And I do think there is some value for starters to get in rhythm a little bit. Like if you sit your starters all preseason and then the team plays poorly week one, that's the immediate talking point is like, oh, well, they're rusty because they never played in the preseason. And then on the flip side of that, if you do get your starters out there and one happens to get hurt during the preseason, then you catch criticism because you played a starter in a meaningless game. So I think that ultimately it's going to come down to if the NFL ultimately gets the 18-game schedule that seems like has been the goal for a long time, I think they'll cut it down to 2 preseason games. And I think we'll get to a point where you might start seeing like starters play a half of maybe the second one. And then the rest will kind of be to sort out the roster bubble guys, the fringe guys that are kind of, really struggling to make a case to stay on the roster and need those game reps to kind of put on film to make that case. But I also could see the flip side of it where it's not worth the risk to run your starters out there and play, more than a couple series just to kind of get in rhythm and kind of get that callus built for the season. I know during the Saints game, Brock Purdy was in a couple compromising positions that had 49ers fans holding their breath, and it looked like he was taking some hits that you wouldn't want to see your franchise quarterback take in any game, but especially a game where the end result doesn't matter in the standings. But after the game, Purdy immediately said, like, no, like, I wanted to be out there. Like, this is what I need to get in rhythm and to be prepared for when, the action really starts week one. Like, this is going to put me in the best position. So I do think it will be an interesting talking point because I do think there are more players than just Purdy that feel that way. But ultimately, these teams have to weigh the risk reward. So I do think it will be kind of tapered down as the years go on, especially if we see another regular season game added.
Man, we always love chopping it up with you, man. We'll do it again soon. What's your pick Monday night? What do you think? Is it Niners going 1-0? I mean, this is a huge game for Robert Saleh because I think they're on the road next week against the Titans. They get the Patriots in week 3. Heck, if they get off to a slow start, Robert Saleh might not make it to October.
I think that it's going to be close early, but I think the Niners comfortably go ahead in the second half and they get out of there with a pretty comfortable win.
Great stuff, man. Always enjoy watching you and listening to your stuff and having you on the YouTube channel. Great stuff. We'll do it again soon. Thanks again, Larry. Anytime. Jordan Elliott, digital producer for NBC Sports Bay Area, stopping by, and we really appreciate him. Brock Purdy keeps it going Monday night. I'm really eager to see what Brock Purdy does this year. I mean, you think of what Brock Purdy did last year, where he had a 113 passer rating, leading the NFL, set the single season franchise record, passer rating of 100 or more in 10 games last year, second most in the NFL. So Brock Purdy, has seemingly, taken this franchise and lifted it all by himself. And now, he's coming into his first full off season. What does it look like? I'm really eager to see his improvement this year. All right, we're going to take a time out. We're going to come back with more. We're going to go through some of the awards for the year and talk a little bit more about the matchup as we get you ready. 49ers Forecast, the first edition of it on the Sports Leader.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, anytime someone's been out for a while, you always got to be careful with them. We're evaluating each practice, and he was still limited today, so he didn't get to do quite as much. But he is getting there, and Christian's been through this stuff before, and I know he'll be out there on Monday, and we'll see how that game goes.
And welcome back to 49er Forecast, the first edition. Larry Krueger with you from Levi's, getting ready to go out to practice in about 20 minutes as the Niners hit the practice field for a rare Saturday practice because they don't play tomorrow. So they'll have a practice today. Shanahan will talk to us after practice. So I'm down here in Santa Clara for that. And, of course, the first edition of 49ers Forecast, taking you right up till 11 a.m. And we pass the reins over to Adam and Marcus for Fantasize This. Fantasize This. Their podcast on fantasy football coming up top of the hour. But we were talking a little bit about the matchup. Before I get into some of the awards that I'm predicting for the year, some of my predictions, because it is the first show. Couple thoughts on the matchup. One of the things that kind of caught me by surprise when he said it this week was Nick Bosa was holding court at his locker. There was like 75 people around him. I could barely hear him because he speaks so low. But he said that he was impressed by the Niner defensive line was improved from what it was a year ago. And it's funny. It's like this is the one off-season thing that I've noticed that when people want to rip the Niners, they'll be like, they lost Eric Armstead. But did they really lose Eric Armstead? Or did they get rid of Eric Armstead? I mean, I love Eric, no offense, and he's a great guy, and not trying to trample in any way on his legacy here in the Bay Area. He's a sack guy. He's a great guy, and he stands for so many things that I respect. But let's not make it sound like, oh, they badly wanted to keep him. They got rid of him. It was so low that it would have been insulting. And he went to Jacksonville. He read he saw the message they were sending, and he took it and went to Jacksonville. Like to Trent Baalke and Eric in Jacksonville. But that's the one spot where if you want to rip the Niners, and I've noticed this, the people that want to be critical of the 49ers are like, they lost Eric Armstead and their D-line's not as good. But you heard Bosa, and he's like, our D-line's improved. So which is it? And if you look at it, so they had Armstead and Kinlaw, Randy Gregory, and Chase Young. Those four guys left. They added from NBC Sports Bay Area, but the former Missouri Tiger, Leonard Floyd, and Yatir Gross-Matos. So it's basically four guys out, four guys in. If you offered that trade, would you make that trade? If that were a trade, would you trade Eric Armstead, Javon Kinlaw, Randy Gregory, and Chase Young for Malik Collins, Jordan Elliott, Yatir Gross-Matos, and Leonard Floyd? And I would. If I were the 49ers, I absolutely would. Leonard Floyd is worlds better than Gregory and Chase Young at this point. Leonard Floyd is an absolute baller. This guy's played in 108 straight games. He's had 9 sacks in 4 straight years. I think there's 3 guys in football that have done that. He's a monster. And by the way, he got death threats last year for sacking Rodgers from Jets fans. And I asked him about it. I'm like, hey man, death threats. You going to dial up some heat on Rodgers on Monday night as a response? And he's like, he didn't want to play up the death threats thing because obviously it's serious. And also it was a year ago. But when I pushed him on it a little bit, I'm like, any extra motivation? He's like, hell yeah. I was getting death threats, from Jets fans. Yeah, I'm going after Rodgers. What I love about Floyd, by the way, to watch for, he's got this unbelievable move where he bursts up the field and then jump cuts inside and flattens to the quarterback in a step and a half. And it's his patented move. And he's had it. He's had it everywhere. Had it in Chicago, had it at Georgia, but man, he's perfected it. It's just a strong upfield burst. It's not even really like a club or anything. It's just an upfield burst, a quick jump cut inside a right hand, usually to the shoulder pads, and Leonard Floyd is a major upgrade. So Collins has made plays as well. Yatir Gross-Matos and Jordan Elliott, we'll have to see. I don't think Gross-Matos is going to go in week 1. But both those guys, I would rather have Collins, Gross-Matos, Floyd, and Elliott than Armstead, Kinlaw, Gregory, and Chase Young. So I agree with Bosa. I think they do have an improved line, but that is like kind of the one area where if you're trying to rip the Niners, they lost Armstead. They lost Randy Gregory. They lost Chase Young. Chase Young didn't look all that great and didn't bring it in the playoffs. And I think they're kind of upgraded to the D-line to be frank. A couple other things on the matchup. I think the screen Niners is going to be essential. Can they stop Breece Hall? Can they stop Rodgers throwing the screen passes to Breece Hall? That to me is a major, major question. Now, Kyle is 3-4 in week 1. So if he gets the win here, he'll go back, he'll be, reach 500. Niners have been a great team on Monday, 52-31 on Monday Nighters, 30-15 at home on Monday night. So they've got great this Monday night matchup. I think they're catching Rodgers and the Jets at exactly. I've heard other people say, no, you don't want Rodgers in September when he's fresh. You want Rodgers in December when he's gassed. And I understand that. And I do agree with that normally. But this is Aaron Rodgers, who's played 4 snaps since 2022, didn't play a single snap in the preseason, getting on the bird, flying cross country, 3 new offensive line starters up front protecting him against a Niner defensive line that has 3 really good pass rushers. So I don't know. I kind of like this spot for the 49ers. To me, this is when you want the Jets. And I would love to see Sorensen dial up some games up front, because you make 3 out of 5 new linemen communicate, make them turn their heads, make them show that they can communicate with one another, despite the fact they haven't time on the field. That's a big one. This Jets team is interesting, though, and they are a better team than you think. They won 3 of their final 5 games last year, and they've added Mike Williams. Garrett Wilson is a far wide receiver. Breece Hall runs in the 4.3s. These guys are a defensive playmaker. And the team offense going against a really good 2-3 days of practice. The Jets defense is elite except against the run. At least the numbers said that from a year ago. They were 25th against wanted Kinlaw. So we'll see. We'll see. I expect the Niners I expect the Jets the short passing game and the run game is I think this is a low scoring game. I think this is a hard fought, this is going to be a bloodbath. It's going to be a very physical football game between 2 of the NFL's more physical football teams. So I'm 21-17, 21-13, 49ers, kind of a lower scoring game. All right. Let's go with some awards here before we take our final break. It's tough to go with awards, 49er winning an award, but you never guess who it is. So my coach of the year, Jim Harbaugh, always seems like he lands on his feet. Kevin Stefanski won it last year with the Browns. Harbaugh is the favorite at plus 850. I expect the Chargers to have a really good year. For Herbert. Harbaugh goes to the Chargers and wins Coach of the Year. Comeback Player of the Year, Rodgers, big year. Defensive Rookie of the Year, I'm going to go with Austin Booker of the Chicago Bears. I saw him in the preseason, the defensive end from Kansas. Guy had 2.5 sacks. Over the last 15 years, that Defensive Rookie of the Year award has gone to an inside linebacker or defensive end 9 times. So Booker, I think, is going to have a huge year, double-digit sack year for the rookie from Kansas who's playing for the Chicago Bears. My offensive rookie of the year, I'm going to go with Malik Neighbors of the New York Giants. It went to C.J. Stroud last year. It's a game where it's an award, I should say, where the wide receivers have won 2 of the last 3 years. And I think Neighbors is a stud, man. And I know Danny Dimes there in New York's really bad, but Malik Neighbors, offensive rookie of the year. The offensive player of the year is going to be Saquon Barkley. It's amazing what Philly's line, the difference between Philly's line and the Giants line. I think Saquon's going to find that out. The defensive player of the year award is going to go to Danielle Hunter, who's now in Houston. The MVP is going to go to Joe Burrow. Only played 10 games last year. He went 3-1. He's gone 3-1 career against Mahomes, by the way. He's got 7 game-winning drives in his career. I just think the Joe Burrow that I saw at Levi's last year was maybe the best player I saw in the league last year. So I think Burrow gets the MVP. The assistant coach of the year, I'm going to give to Nick Sorensen. I think Nick Sorensen is going to have a great run as the Niner defensive coordinator. I think you're going to see the Niners front and the back end tied together. That was not the case a year ago. And that's the number one reason Steve Wilks is not here. The NFL Executive of the Year, I'm going to give that to Omar Khan of the Pittsburgh Steelers. He couldn't pull off the Ayuk trade, but he drafts Zach Frazier, the best center in the draft, Troy Fatanu, the best tackle in the draft, Mason McCormick, the best guard in the draft. So he got the best center, guard, and tackle all in one draft. And he drafted Peyton Wilson, who I think is probably going to lose out to Austin Booker for the Defensive Rookie of the Year award. So Omar Khan, and then they signed Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, Cordero Patterson, Patrick Queen. I mean, Beanie Bishop, they found after the draft. He's starting. I'm going Omar Khan. My division winners in the NFC are going to be Niners, Falcons, Lions, and Eagles, with the wild cards being Dallas, LA, and Washington. Green Bay lost their quarterback last night. That's going to be a crusher. AFC division winners, Kansas City, Houston, Cincinnati, and Buffalo, with the 3 wild cards being Miami, Baltimore, and Pittsburgh. Your AFC champions will be D'Amico Ryans, Houston Texans. The Niners will win the NFC championship, and I'm going 49ers over D'Amico's Texans for that 6th Lombardi trophy. All right, we'll take our final timeout. We'll come back with a couple last thoughts as we finish up on 49er Focus on the Sports Leader. All right, we're coming down the home stretch on 49ers forecast, which I called 49ers focus last segment, but it's the first edition of the show, so you got to bear with us. By the way, Texas taking apart the Michigan Wolverines in the Big House, 24-3 at the half. Wow. Quinn Ewers with 165 yards. They got Arch Manning on that team. Penn State also losing in Happy Valley to Bowling Green. That would be an upset of the 8th-ranked Nittany Lions. All right, couple picks for tomorrow. If you're looking for some wagering opportunities tomorrow in the NFL, here are 3 games that I really like. I know Raf's not going to want to hear this, but I kind of like the Titans against his Bears at Soldier tomorrow. Both teams went undefeated in the preseason. This is Caleb Williams' NFL debut, but the Bears are 2-8 in their last 10 openers. And the number 1 pick as a rookie quarterback is 4-15-1 in the season opener and have lost 9 in a row. The last first pick quarterback to actually win his debut was David Carr, and he's been on the NFL Network for a few years now. So go with the Titans. I also like the Seahawks -6. Bo Nix against Geno Smith, rookie quarterbacks on the road for Denver. First-round rookie quarterbacks never do well in this spot. Nix is starting for Denver. Give me Seattle there. And I also kind of like the Lions beating the Rams. The Rams' offensive line's a mess. The right tackle's out. Detroit's pass rush is improved. Rams are a young team. Puka's hurt. So go with the Lions against the Rams. All right. Enjoy your fantasy hour next with Marcus and Adam. We'll see you tomorrow, or see you Monday, I should say, for Niner pregame on the Sports Leader.
This is Greg Papa, your voice of 49ers football. Papa and Lund, 10-2, right here
on KNBR and KNBR FM, San Francisco.